Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online viewers, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Relika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, February 26, 2020. At this time, I invite the Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, the Honorable Christopher Waver, to address you.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning, Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the media, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. I would like to start off with a few updates. Last week, Friday, the Ministry of Romy helped to place 2 garbage bins on the top of the Kobe Hill on the viewpoint. This was long awaited as we received some garbage bins, but we had to wait for the platform to be ready in order to place them. This week, we're hoping to place some of those same garbage bins alongside the boardwalk as well. So that will take place either today or tomorrow. Also, in keeping up with what's important to me is preserving our monuments. I ensured that we place some poles alongside the A.C. Wati statue in front of the old government building. This was to prevent the motorists from parking alongside of it, and I consider that a little disrespectful. So based on that, I ensured to have some poles placed there as well to ensure that the statue is upkept. Part of the cleanup campaign, I am also in talks, and the ministry is in talks together with, I don't know if I can say, Coca-Cola Enterprise as well, to place some recycled bins alongside certain areas, certain districts. One of the ones I think it is, but it will be more elaborated this coming week, if not in the beginning of next week, together with Meadowlands as well, where we will place more of the recycled bins alongside. I think there's by Carrefour, there's across Blue Point where it was before, there's by McDonald's, I believe in Dutch Quarter, alongside some other areas in Kobe to spread it out to enhance the recycling in the community as well. So look out for that as well. There seems to be still continuous sewage issues happening around the island. Up to this morning, my colleague minister shared a video of some running sewage, and as we know, when it rains, this is also the time when the sewage fills the roads as well, where people take the opportunity, or it just happens to come from the hillsides and floods the roads. Part of this also last week is where I signed off on the land purchase in K Bay as part of the sewage treatment plant plan for Kobe. This will also help the sewage issues that is much needed. I think we need to enhance the sewage network around the island, and that will prevent long-term prevention for the sewage waste. What comes with this as well, I think that eventually Parliament would have to take a step into that, is to ensure that the law is placed that we can charge a fee to have the sewage charged as well, to ensure that the network is up to date and that it continues to function. And this is, again, a long-term solution, long-term plans. And with that as well is the Dutch Quarter situation is also, the works that is happening there is also in part to enhance the sewage connections as well in Dutch Quarter. Now there's talks happening right now with the Van Boekel and parties of the government in Vromi as well, as we hope to start the works back again early March. So first to second week of March, it's just we need to finalize certain details and hopefully sign off on the contract within short. So that is also a positive situation that we can, get the people working again, especially most of the work is being done by the local contractors in that, or subcontracting in that district. and they have been waiting long and have been very patient to ensure that the right steps have been taken, that the works can continue and finish. A brief update on the road patching that has started since the 18th of February. What we're looking at now is the 26th, Wednesday, the 26th of February. We'll be conducting some road patching on Welfare Road, and then we're heading on to the Airport Road, which would take 2 days. And then on Thursday, we're looking into the Simpson Bay Airport Road and also Rhine Road. So that will complete this phase of the patchworks. So this concludes my updates for today, and I await any questions from the press. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Wavert, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Egbert Duran, to address you.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to you. Good morning to the Honorable Prime Minister, my colleague ministers, members of the media, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. Today, I would like to announce the following points. Last week, I appointed Police Inspector Ketura Brown as acting SG in the Ministry of Justice. This came as a result of the former SG resigning, making the position available. The recruitment process will also start down the line. We are still in discussions to decide the best way forward in that amongst the Council of Ministers. I look forward to getting the full cooperation from the various department heads within the ministry in terms of a smooth transition and us helping to move the ministry forward. Last week, I also had a working trip to Curacao at El Haje Arms to deal with a long-standing 8-year issue that has been going on within the Ministry of Justice, particularly within the Department of Customs, of some equipment that they purchased years ago, and there was an issue with getting the equipment here. We are in the meantime in talks with them in terms of getting a solution to have that dealt with. We had to destroy some stuff because of after 4 years, the time elapsed on certain things in regards to safety. So these particular ammunition for the customs had to be destroyed, and that was also a waste of money in my opinion. Upon taking office, I saw several bills and I started to inquire as to why are these not being dealt with. So I want the public to rest assured that we are busy being careful and also paying attention to things that we do as government in terms of saving money as well. So this will be dealt with. I was also able to speak to the director in regards to potentially coming to St. Martin and giving a sort of a workshop, of which they agreed to and they volunteered to do so within the coming weeks. I'm still awaiting on a confirmation date, and the public will be made available as well, so that they can give a demonstration to various stakeholders within the Ministry of Justice, because all the firearms that we use come from that particular company and they deal with that particular brand as well. Another update is that 27 million has been placed on the capital deeds in the budget for the new construction of a new prison. I got this news from my colleague finance minister when he returned from the Netherlands. So this is also good news. We all know we have an issue in terms of capacity and all these different things that are plaguing us right now in the prison. So this is also a step in the right direction. Following update I have is that a couple weeks ago I made mention of an IT delegation going to Curacao to do a training in regards to cybersecurity. The 4 individuals, IT professionals, came back and they had a briefing with me yesterday in terms of how the trip went and some details. We had several cyber attacks in the past, and I saw this as a key opportunity to get our IT professionals up to date on the potential threats that are out there in order to avoid us having situations as we had in the past in terms of breaches of our security. They also bragged about the success of the trip and what all they learned, so I feel it was very important, and I look forward to having more of these things done in terms of the IT and the protection, not only in the Ministry of Justice, but also across the board in all the different ministries. My next point is in regards to the electronic monitoring. I'm happy to announce that yesterday we were able to sign the covenant in regards to the electronic monitoring. I made mention of it last week. The key stakeholders were the Open Bar Ministeri, Corps Politie St. Martin, SJIB, and myself. We were able to reach to a consensus, and this will be enacted very soon. This would also alleviate the congestion at the Point Blanche prison and solve a lot of issues that we've been having, and also in terms of the safety and security of our country. I'm very proud to make this announcement because it has been a long 2 months, but eventually we got there. And I would like to say thank you to everyone involved in the process before me as well, and I look forward to it being a great success. For now, that would be all my updates. I would like to thank you, and I look forward to any questions the media may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Duran, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, the Honorable Silveria Jacobs, to address you.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleague ministers. Good morning to the members of their cabinet and the media present. It is an honor, of course. Good morning to the people of St. Martin. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here with you this morning. This morning, I would like to start with answering a question that was asked of me last week. I would like to still apologize that it's not complete, but I can answer that the ministry, I believe it was from PJ82's Stephen Cerillion. The question came as to the persons within the ministry, the personnel. I was able to ascertain that we have, because there's still a separation between the personnel affairs of justice and the rest of the ministry, that I don't have the total numbers. I was only able to get the total number of justice. But for the rest of the ministry is 838, justice 637. So when you add that, it's about 1,476 persons working in total. There are within the other 6 ministries, 35 department heads, excluding the acting heads. And if you count the Ministry of Justice, 7 SGs, including 3 acting SGs. And in terms of the number of government employees on long-term sick leave, medical leave, there are 20 within the other 6 ministries. Based on the fact that the Justice Ministry is quite large and outside of the P&O, the personnel and organization of government at this moment, we're currently working on bringing it together, but we're not there yet. And so getting that information from such a vast ministry will take a little more time. You'll be updated as soon as we have that information. Moving on to other news regarding the Ministry of General Affairs, as we enter another year and with the hurricane preparedness being one of government's priorities, I held a meeting as Minister of General Affairs with the internal lead organizer of our annual Hurricane Expo. This was held last week. We met to discuss how government should approach and adjust this year's Hurricane Expo. Of course, I was given a breakdown as to how it was executed in the past. And this year, the Expo is being heavily supported by CoM as well as Nagico, an insurance provider. They have formed part of the organization or participated in the organization in the years past, but especially CoM came forward with many suggestions in how it could be improved and how they could contribute, actually, which I think is a great initiative from the business community. So their proposal is being perused and further explored and adjusted as we move forward. I would like to, through this medium, encourage and recommend other businesses to also continue to partner with government to make this year's Hurricane Expo an even bigger and more successful event than it has been in the past. This year's planning, we will be approaching such entities as well as service providers to partner with us to make it a grand event. Also in that meeting, in preparing for this session, I brought forward that I would like to see it be more of a disaster management preparedness and not solely focus on hurricanes, as We've gotten quite used to preparing for the hurricane season. It has a set time, but at any time during the year, we can be hit with any other type of disaster. So in preparing for this expo, you will also be seeing different presentations, etc., regarding general disaster management. I think this would then bring St. Martin's awareness level up a notch. We are also partnering, of course, with CoM and other entities to ensure that we continue to stay vigilant and inform the public in terms of preparedness across the board. So look out for that. It's coming, I believe, towards the beginning of the hurricane season, which would be in June or early July. You can look out for that. I was also blessed earlier this week, I believe it was on Monday, to have the pleasure to receive a courtesy visit from the 5 Junior Carnival Queen pageant contestants and the reigning queen. It was indeed a pleasure for me to marvel at the wit and intelligence of these young ladies, ranging from the ages of 8 to 12. We had a very interesting chat in which the young ladies gave their motivation for participating, what schools they attended, etc., showed absolutely no fear in the presence of the Prime Minister, I must say, and they will be competing in the areas of speech, talent, carnival costume, and princess wear. So I would like to, in advance, congratulate them for their courage to step forward and stand in front of crowds and represent themselves and their schools and their families, of course, and wish them much success. And I'd like to encourage the public to support them in this endeavor, as I believe such pageants not only are a showcase of talent and intelligence and beauty, but also helps in the individual's development of character and self-esteem. Having been a product of such myself, I must say, and I was able to tell them, while I didn't think that was my thing, I was kind of pushed into it. It did help me to become more comfortable speaking in front of people, and it serves me well today. So they never knew. Some of them even said, they would be leaders later. So I'm looking forward to that, actually. Every day is a new day to be inspired by our younger generation. In other news, the governing program is one of the tasks that I am charged with as formateur for the next incoming government. We do know that this interim government had a very short list of requirements that we were expected to carry out. Of course, now having a 4-year term, the governing program is being worked on, and in connection therewith, I had a meeting with the Department of Interior and Kingdom Relations, BAC, known as BAC, which falls under the Ministry of General Affairs, which has been tasked with the responsibility to develop and implement a national development plan. So because we're busy with the governing program, they actually, informed me of this, and we were able to sit and discuss how they can help us to align our governing program so that it falls within the parameters of what is already being worked on. And so the governing program work group will also be privy to some of the guidelines or the parameters of such a plan that is being worked out. And hopefully soon we'll be able to divulge not just what the governing program entails, but also what the national development vision for St. Martin will be. Yesterday, I was also able to have the first introductory meeting with the St. Martin representative on the St. Martin Trust Fund Steering Committee, Mr. Marcel Gomes. He was accompanied by NRPB Director Claret Connor, who I must say, as government, we have had bi-weekly reports from and many, many meetings related to the ongoing projects. Of course, this meeting was for us to ascertain possibilities moving forward, of course, with a new government coming in, what is actually still possible within the fund, and the procedures, proper procedures in terms of how to get projects from the fund were clearly discussed. And so before us as a government, we do have quite some opportunities. We must make it clear, though, that going directly to the NRPB is not the way. All projects must come from government. So if we are within government looking at projects, then it must come through that particular ministry through to the Council of Ministers for approval. And once the Council of Ministers has approved it, then myself, as Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, will forward the project on to the NRPB and the Steering Committee for final vetting. But all projects, I must repeat, do come from a priority of the government of St. Martin and must be approved by the Council of Ministers. Today, after this press briefing, the Council of Ministers will be joining the council, so my colleague ministers and I will be visiting the St. Martin Postal Services, which has moved to the building opposite the government building where the Civil Registry and Tax Office was located. They have been, of course, facing quite some challenges. I have been more privy to them, of course, and the Council of Ministers are updated as needed in terms of decision-making where a larger understanding is necessary to move forward. So in order to understand some of their challenges, we'll be doing a walkthrough at the post office to get a clearer picture of some of the challenges and how we will be dealing with them moving forward. I must say they are already on their way, and yesterday in the Council of Ministers meeting, we were able to approve that an ATM machine in collaboration with the Windward Islands Bank will be placed there as well to facilitate the general public, those using the postal services, as well in the general area, so those within the government building as well. In good news, also moving forward, many may not be aware, I don't think it gets enough attention. March 8th is International Women's Day. And I think as St. Martin, we have a lot to celebrate. If we compare ourselves to many other countries, we have women in the seats of power. We have women in all areas of our society. We are striving, of course, for more equality. We can never rest until that has been achieved. We are still the minority, even though we are the majority in the society. So in this, I would like to mention that together with, as Minister of General Affairs and Prime Minister, in collaboration with the Vice President of the Collectivité of Saint Martin, Ms. Valerie Damaso, that we are collaborating to celebrate Women of Saint Martin. We are striving for next week, Wednesday. It is the 4th of March, but I would like to encourage all women's groups and all families and all institutions and all businesses to acknowledge the females who are contributing to the development of this country, be it in whichever field, and to actually ensure that they feel special during this first week of March. For this celebration that we will be having next week, we are honoring the late Madam Daniela Jeffrey and the late Mrs. Mavis Brooks Salmon, as recently departed icons within both the French and Dutch side of St. Martin, as well as one other person who I will not mention yet because it's a bit of a surprise. This lady is still alive, and it will be a bit of a surprise for her, so I won't mention it here. But we will be having at least 50 women to 60 gathered together to celebrate some of course, when we started making the list, it became increasingly difficult to ensure that as many women from many genres were included as possible who have made a difference for St. Martin. We are celebrating women who have been pioneers, who are pillars, who are mentors, who are even mothers as one of the core tasks of a woman. And we honor them all, and we look forward to the many ways in which they will be honored throughout the first week of March and entire month of March, because where there is woman, there's magic. I would like to thank the media and those tuned in at the moment, and I will wait until there's further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing. The Minister of Finance and Acting Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Artwell Edion, is present, however will not be making any opening statements, but is available for any questions the media may have. We now move on to the question and answer session. Dimitri Wheatfield of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Hi, so good morning to the people of St. Martin. Good morning to the Council of Ministers, Honorable Prime Minister. My first question is to Justice Minister Egbert Duran. It is in relation to your announcement that there will be 27 million allocated for a new prison. I didn't get whether that would be dollars or guilders. And is this money coming from a form of a grant from the Dutch government or a loan? When is the start date, and will this new prison be built on the old location of the Point Blanche prison?
Good morning. Thank you for your question, Dimitri. It was a matter of 27 million guilders that will be placed on the capital deans and on capital deans within the budget, of course. In regards to the finer details, that will be made available as soon as there's more information. We're still in the discussion phases, and I'd rather not divulge in that right now. So it's 27 million guilders.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Stephen Cyrilin of PJ82 Radio, you have the floor.
In relation to the very same question, good morning, Prime Minister, Ministers. The Minister of Finance, the Minister of Justice said that you were able to acquire this financing for the prison whilst on your trip to the Netherlands. Can you give us an idea as to how this came about?
Good morning to people of St. Martin. Good morning to you, Council of Ministers. Good morning to you, Mr. Civilian. So what happened was that we have budgeted the 27 million in the capital needs, which was also a requirement of the Minister of Justice. You know, he spoke to me before he left for the trip. He emphasized the urgency of having funds made available for a prison to be either repaired or built. And speaking with the Minister Knops, they also agreed that this is also an urgent matter. So when the capital deans becomes available, we have budgeted 27 million guilders for the prison.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the ministers that are present here today. Question to the Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance, it seems like there's a pattern. Like after Hurricane Irma, there was a statement, if William signed this document, we will get the money right away. Now, who are responsible to lower the salary of the ministers? It seems like the same pattern is emerging. If you lower your salary, there will be a lot of gifts and grant.
I'm not too sure what the exact question was, because a multiple question.
Let me be specific. Now, from the Dutch, if you lower your salary, there will be grant. We will give you grant, and you will have access to more monies for the economy of St. Martin. So it's a pattern. You do this, and we will do that.
I believe you're referring to the conditions that were set to the liquidity support for 2019 that the former government agreed to. And the PM and myself, we went to the Netherlands and we renegotiated the terms of the conditions that we believe that we could live up to. And that process is still being worked out at the moment. So it was not lower salaries to get gifts or grants. It was conditions set for liquidity support of 2019.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Andrew Bishop of St. Martin News, you have the floor.
Thank you, good morning to the Prime Minister and the Ministers of Government. My question is for the Minister of Justice. We have recently learned that the recently appointed prison director was fired. What was the reason for his termination at this crucial phase of the rebuilding of the prison? Have you decided who will be his replacement?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Bishop. I'd rather not go into personal HR-related matters with individuals, but in regards to the rebuilding of the prison, there's still a management team and everything will be following through as planned. So there's no interruption at all. I had extensive discussions with my colleagues, ministers, in the Council of Ministers, and they understand the views, and nothing is done without a reason. I'd like to leave it at there for now. In regards to, you have a follow-up question?
No, I needed to know if it was the truth that the directive person was fired.
Yes. It is true.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. We now move on to the second round of questions. Dimitri, you have the floor.
My second question is to Finance Minister Irian. You indicated a few press briefings ago that the new 2020 license plates are delayed due to technical issues. What exactly are these issues? Is it that St. Martin is late in ordering the plates? And is there any truth to reports that the contractor who was awarded the bid pulled out in mid-January, which meant that the process had to be restarted at the last minute?
Thank you for your question. So the first contractor that won the bid, yes, they did pull out, and currently we are facing issues with the delivery pertaining to the company in China that isn't allowed to be open due to the coronavirus. So as you know, worldwide, the companies, countries are being affected and pressured by the non-delivery of products due to the coronavirus and companies not being allowed to open. And we are also now facing that situation at the moment.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Question to the Minister of Roaming. This question can emerge also to the Justice Minister. Minister, we have realized that the crime rate dropped very much. Reason, the local guys in the community are getting opportunity to open their own business. When you look around from K-Bay, Cold Bay, Dutch Quarter, Soccer Garden, there are local guys who get their license for garbage collection. And this is a great thing. So who don't know, the last analysis was from the Justice Office was 2018. And now you have seen there are less violent activities in the district. Ministers, do you all plan to give the local guys more license so that they can operate their business? Because we have seen blessings have come to this community and families. So tell us what's your plan and in this aspect, ministers. Both of you can respond.
Thank you for your question. Well, I agree. I mean, locals, we need to ensure that our locals have jobs and have the opportunities. In any discussion I have with any investor or anything like that, it's okay, but how will you employ the locals and how can we get the locals involved? Even if it's to train the locals and then they leave and then the locals take up the responsibilities in that sense. A perfect example as well is the Dutch Quarter project that we need to ensure that that continues and that gets on the way as soon as possible as well, because all of the subcontractors there are from the Dutch Quarter area, you know, and I mean, it goes beyond, I mean, my ministry is garbage collection or maintenance or anything like that. I think it goes all across the board in the whole government entity for whatever works are available, that we ensure that the locals also are part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Waver. Minister Durang.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Brown. I agree wholeheartedly with my colleague minister, and the more you keep our people involved and busy in the process of rebuilding or whatever have you, it decreases the violence, of course, because then they don't have to seek alternatives to feed their families. And anybody that knows me know that I'm pro supporting and encouraging our young people, and not only young people, our locals, to get involved in the process of being able to be part of the economy. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Minister Durant. Stephen Cyrillian of PJ82 Radio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. My question is for the Prime Minister. As formateur, Minister, indications are that the formation process is over. The candidate ministers have been identified. In fact, they have all passed their screening. It now means that based on the information reaching me, the swearing-in ceremony of ministers will be taking place sometime on March 2nd. Can you provide some information for us as to how that process has been coming along? And please confirm if the report is actual, factual.
Thank you for that question, Stephen. It always amazes me how reports that I have to create are divulged before they are created. Since I have not finalized the formation report, no, the formation process has not been finalized. We have actually passed our projected date. The date we wanted to be finished with the process was on Monday, the 24th. Today's the 26th. I have my internal deadlines, which I will not be further divulging, because every time I don't meet it, then I would be only disappointing myself and my incoming council. So I will hold back on any new deadlines. I would love to see the process finalized before the end of this week. That is what I would like, but it is out of my hands. We are awaiting reports that come from third parties, and therefore I cannot say that the process is finished. It looks very, very positive, however, for all the candidates involved. And until I have positive confirmation of those reports, that I can say I am at the end and provide His Excellency with my final report, then the process is still not complete, unfortunately. But I must say, in the meantime, in the interim, that the sitting Council of Ministers has been executing at a very high level. Though we are not a full council, we are getting the job done. And I continue to hope and pray that with continuity and 4 years, that we'll be able to continue with the job that we have started here in this interim period. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Andrew Bishop, you have the floor.
Thank you. My question is for the Minister of Romy. So you pointed out that the project in Dutch Quarter is expected to start in March. When is this project expected to be completed? Because the last time I spoke with a contractor, he said it was supposed to be finished in August last year.
Thank you for your question. The end date, of course, the start date affects the end date, you know? So negotiations were being held, and I think some verbal agreements were understood and met, but now it's to just put everything in paper and to finalize that. So until that is signed and agreed on by all parties, the works cannot start. But we're more into the end phase in that sense, so we hope to start it soon. And based on when the start date is, I could indicate when the end date would be expected based on the agreements made. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Minister Waver. We now move on to the final round of questions. Dimitri, you have the floor.
My final question is for Minister Duran. You previously said that you will not go into the details of why the prison director, Alvin Kelly, was fired, but can you give us an indication as to who will be replacing him? And if you haven't selected a replacement yet, how far are you along in the process?
Again, I would like to refrain from making any comments in the beginning stages. Just rest assured that it has my full attention and the attention of the Council of Ministers, and more details will be made available as soon as they are available. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Stephen Cyrilin of PJDT Radio, you have the floor.
Ms. Roach, thank you. My question is for the Prime Minister, the absence of the Minister of VSA. America is on high alert as it pertains to the coronavirus. In fact, there have been indications that they are taking all precautionary measures to ensure that this disease does not spread throughout the mainland. How often do you meet with your counterpart on the French side to ensure that proper mechanisms are being put in place to ensure our safety as far as the coronavirus is concerned, Prime Minister?
Thank you, Stephen, for that question. Yes, in the absence of Minister Gordon Carty, I must say, from the time this virus became an issue of discussion throughout the world, we and all the entities involved have had the discussions. We've even had pre-discussions. I was told I was a bit premature to call the EOC together, but I wanted to ensure that all entities were also indeed looking at planning and preparation for these type of outbreaks, pandemics, which can happen, as we see, based on the fact that we are an island, we're a hub, we cater to travel. And as we can see around the world, it has affected travel. As we get the majority of our flights from the US and Europe, and we see that no direct flights come from Asia to St. Martin, that makes that they have to enter through a port that has very stringent measures already in place. Our Collective Protective Services, CPS, is under the public health sector department, is in constant contact with the WHO, being updated on a regular basis, and we are continuing to promote preventative measures. The airports and our other ports are on alert and have procedures in place. And in fact, we saw where it could be perceived that they even went overboard in terms of protecting themselves when a passenger came in with a gastro problem off of a flight and put the whole island in a panic. It is very, very easy. We cannot pretend that we are not exposed, of course. I have not personally had meetings, formal meetings with my counterparts, but in informal conversations with the president of the collectivité and Madame Damaso as well. We are constantly updated as to what steps are being taken by each part, and of course being directly and indirectly linked to Europe through our constitutions. There is also that mechanism that can kick in to assist if something does occur. But we remain vigilant. We continue to implore the general public to exercise caution. We do know we are still in the flu season. February is ending, and it might be warming up soon, but this is usually the time of year when the flu season is already rampant and spreads. And we've had several outbreaks in the past few weeks in terms of quite some people infected by the flu. So taking caution in using proper etiquette for coughing and sneezing is something that, and washing your hands as much as possible, keeping hand sanitizer at your elbow. We are a very touchy-feely, culturally, people on St. Martin, and so I would just, be very careful in your interactions with people. It is not just this virus, in general, to remain on a healthy level. We have seen and heard initially that it mostly targeted elderly persons who have passed away, were mainly elderly or very young children, or persons with already existing respiratory challenges. Lately, as I've been following on the news, they're even citing some other cases. So for me, based on the fact that they are saying that the virus continues to, whether it's mutate and adjust itself in order to survive, we have to continue to take precautions. We remain at the ready. Our services remain at the ready. Of course, we're a small island, and the best way we would be able to protect our people is to keep it from entering our ports. So I must say, some of the paranoia exists even within me. In my last travel, everybody that coughed in the plane, I was like, oh my goodness. But there is no way other than you cannot put a thermometer on each person that comes off the plane. I would like to see probably that even the airlines step up their announcement, just like they make other safety announcements in terms of what to do in case of an emergency, to encourage the passengers to also utilize proper coughing and sneezing etiquette and promote hand washing as much as possible. For right now, that's all we can do, and we will continue to monitor the situation at our ports and within our services.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Lyndon Brown, you have the floor.
Final question to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, as we focus in presently now in Front Street, Some of the business owners are crying out right now. A statement have come to me that about 8 businesses have closed from January to February for reason, financial problem. They are not able to pay their overhead. And is it this a concern for your office, Prime Minister? What words of hope can you give to these people?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I would have to first of all confirm with the Ministry of Economic Affairs whether these business closures have actually taken place. I know, as a matter of fact, if we check with the Chamber of Commerce, you also see an increase after Hurricane Irma in businesses establishing. So that could be a normal phenomenon as well. I am not sure, but once we have gotten an official statement from the Economic Affairs Department, we can further explore what can be done or what cannot be done in this case, in these cases. So until I have a confirmation and a discussion with Ministry of TIAT, I will hold off the answering of that question.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Andrew Bishop, you have the final question.
Thank you. My question is for the Minister of VOMI. We have noticed that in the past, the GEBE building was demolished. There has been talks or conversations with regard to the demolition of the former government administration building. Do we have any updates on that?
Thank you for your question. As it pertains to the GEB or the administration building, they internally there have, the managements have plans as well. We're awaiting, VROMI has not received any draft permit request in that sense. And I think they're also looking for the finances and to get the board approval as well to invest. As it pertains to the government administration building, a tender process is on the way. It's making its rounds now to head up to the Council of Ministers for approval. Once that is approved, then the tender process takes place, and then whoever wins that bid will then be responsible for the demolition of the government building. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Waver. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, February 26, 2020. For rebroadcast, tune in at 7 p.m. on St. Martin Cable TV and via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM. For video on demand, log on to the official government's website at stmartingov.org. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach, and bidding you a pleasant day further.